Albums. Today I'm going to be talking about ACDC's albums. A little bit of confusion, a little bit of confusion and discrepancy between what you hear for the album sales and all that. Now, of course, years ago I heard that they sold 120 million albums, which sounds very believable. And I forgot exactly what was the amount. I think during the early to mid 90s, I heard that ACDC sold over 100 million albums. So by like the late 90s and early 2000s, I had heard that it was 120 million. Of course, that's very believable. They're really popular, so everybody knows their top-selling album is Back in Black. It's no surprise, with 10 million copies. But then, of course, throughout the years, I keep hearing different numbers: 15 million, 12 million, 30 million. And of course, I read even on one site, it was 50 million. So the bottom four in the least selling ACDC albums are as follows: Power Age, Flick the Switch, Fly on the Wall, and Blow Up Your Video. So those albums right there sold 1 million apiece, which is pretty good. I mean, considering that's the lowest amount for album sales, 1 million copies per album, that would be great for any other bands that aren't as successful. Some other bands, 1 million selling albums is their best album. So anyways, I know that the albums just keep selling, and the sales numbers are going to change throughout the years because people just keep buying the albums, people that are just getting into ACDC. For example, back in 1986, when I got into them, I started to buy all their tapes. So each of that one counted as a sale right after Who Made Who came out. So there's people doing that. What's really curious though, what I'm curious about, is how many of these albums, how much they sold for during the first year. Because like Back in Black sold a lot for its first year, and then so did, of course, Power Up, and everything in between. Back in Black and Power Up sold a lot within their first year. So I'm curious about the others. There was probably like low numbers, and then of course they probably sold more. They probably sold more of those older albums during the late 90s and year 2000 and 2000s than they did during their first year. Who knows specifically? But it's just curious to know like how the albums sell. We all know that other fans, when they get into it, they're buying the albums, and then it just increases the sale. So these numbers, Ballbreaker, Black Ice, and Let There Be Rock, sold 2 million copies. For Those About the Rock sold 4 million. And the Razor's Edge sold 5 million. So the Razor's Edge is primarily what people consider ACDC's comeback album, and what that got them back into doing a lot more album sales. Technically, it was probably Blow Up Your Video. There was a decline in popularity. However, you figure with, since the Razor's Edge, and of course Blow Up Your Video, and they just keep getting popular and more popular. So Black Ice did pretty good, but surprising, and this is what I saw online, the album that has sold the least amount of ACDC's album is surprisingly Rock or Bust. And Rock or Bust came out in 2014, and it was the least selling one. So you figure, with the internet and all this other stuff, and YouTube and all that, that ACDC's popularity just keeps growing. But for some weird reason, with Rock or Bust in 2014, it was the least selling album. With Dirty Deeds selling 6 million albums and Highway to Hell 7 million albums. Now, of course, a lot of people wonder and think, well, why is that? One of the main reasons why is because of course, radio. Who listens to radio nowadays? Well, a good amount of people do. I don't. But if you happen to be like me and stuck into a radio listening situation, like at work, like throughout the years, people usually have on the classic rock station. And the classic rock stations, they play all those classic things from Pink Floyd to Eagles to Van Halen, the heavier stuff, and just the other pop rock stuff. So they do that, and then they play those selective songs. And of course, the selective songs you always hear on the radio are Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, and or of course Highway to Hell. Once in a while they'll throw in one of the other ones from Highway to Hell, but it's like 4 main songs. Once in a while they'll play like an older song? Not too much. Not really that much. It's mainly those 4 songs. So Highway to Hell and Back in Black are always continuously promoted, and people are buying those albums off of that. So it's kind of weird that people in the year 2000 something are listening to the radio and then buying those albums. Or other newer fans are saying, hey, what's the best ACDC albums? These 2. Highway to Hell and Back in Black. But it's kind of weird, and I wouldn't consider, I'm not saying anybody's not a true fan, but you can't really call somebody like a really true ACDC fan if they have like 2 of the albums and they don't like the others or have the others. Because what people are doing is missing out on a lot of those other albums. Now I know probably some people say the songwriting wasn't as good as on some of the other ones. The songwriting is kind of very similar throughout ACDC's whole career. The Flick of the Switch was a cool one because it was heavy. So I could see how, but it was during 83, and 83, you know, metal was popular and huge, so I don't see how, maybe because there was this new bands, but I don't see how Flick of the Switch failed to really, you know, do really good sales. Especially, you know, the 3rd album into Brian Johnson's, you know, when Brian Johnson joined. And the same thing with like Fly on the Wall. Maybe at that point some people were probably tired of ACDC. But I did a whole review for Fly on the Wall, and I think that's an awesome album. Now Flick of the Switch is an awesome heavy album. And all the ACDC albums are awesome. Okay, the last I heard about Back in Black when I did my research was 22 million. And then there's one other site that says 50 million. So I'm not sure specifically what to believe. But here's the thing. If you take all the album sales between like Back in Black and the 7, and if this site is correct, the one that said this one sold 1 million, that one sold 1 million, if you add all those numbers up, it doesn't equal to 200 million. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy in there. So I'm kind of curious on how and why, like, where are they getting this information from? I know specifically it doesn't matter. You know, just as a fan, you're kind of curious on like what albums have sold. Everybody's curious about which albums have sold the most. They know which ones have sold the most, Highway to Hell and Back in Black, and they know which ones have sold the least, Flick of the Switch and Fly on the Wall, and of course with some others. But people are kind of curious on the in-between and how, why, what people don't like about those albums and stuff like that. I don't think there's any ACDC album I specifically don't like, but I could see how and why, like, for example, 74 Jailbreak didn't sell that well. It was an EP. It came out right in 1984, right before Fly on the Wall. They just threw out there to re-release it. Jailbreak's an awesome song, but once again, it's an EP, so, and it didn't get a lot of publicity. It didn't get a lot of promotion. However, they did do a video for it, and the video for it's awesome, and I had no idea they had a video for it. I saw it on the Headbangers Ball one time, and they just, bam, just showed it. Nobody had ever said anything about it, and this was before Family Jewels and the ACDC DVDs. This is probably like 1989. About 1988 or 1989, I'm not sure, but I just absolutely freaked out when I saw it. I was just like, holy shit, they have the video for this? And it was just, it's an amazing song, awesome video. Okay, so once again, the numbers, if when you Google them, you're going to get different numbers depending on what site. They don't specifically know, or they're not really accurate. They don't really know the exact figure. The sales are always going up. Does it specifically matter? No. But for ACDC fans, and if you're an ACDC fan, you're probably kind of curious on which albums are in the middle and how much they've sold. We all know that Highway to Hell and Back in Black, which are incredible albums, and they sold a lot. And they deserve to have sold a lot, but of course they play them on the radio like crazy, and I don't want to say that they're overrated, but a lot of people seem to like those the best. Or of course because it's played on the radio all the time. But anyways, it doesn't matter. ACDC has sold a lot of albums. They're awesome. I don't know if Power Up's going to be the last one. I don't know if they're going to do another one. It's an interesting thing. But hey, thanks for watching, and see you.